Hello everyone, and welcome to a special sponsored content episode of HeiseSays. Today we have the CEO of InfiniGold, Jon Deane, joining us today to discuss about, well, Perth Mint Gold Token, InfiniGold, and a little bit about his history. Welcome on the show, Jon. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
How's Sydney treating you at the moment? All good down there? Nice and relaxed? You looking comfortable there?
Yeah, no, as we were just sort of talking about, Sydney's definitely got back into the groove, I guess, over the last couple of weeks, and life's coming back to normality.
Are you doing your part for your local coffee shop, mate? Are you going out there every day to work and getting your 3 coffees, your stein of coffee to support the locals?
Yeah, well, we're back. Our office is based in the Rocks, and I actually just went down to the coffee shop just then, and they're actually back to, I would say, nearly normal numbers. It's a bit of an unfortunate situation for a lot of the businesses in the Rocks because obviously they rely on the cruise line industry, and they've kind of been, hurt harder than most. And so I guess everyone down here tries to support them. So yeah, maybe there is 3-4 coffees a day.
That I'll tell my wife. That justifies the coffee consumption. We're doing it to support the economy.
I think the suburban coffee shops are doing a fantastic trade, by the way.
Yeah. No, that is a good. I'd hate to realize how much of our economy is actually driven just by coffee shops in Australia, but that's probably another topic to discuss. So, you've got into InfiniGold, and you've got a bit of a history to you. You're a commodity trader. You've gone through, the CommBank. You went to JP Morgan. Tell us a bit about your history. How did you wind up with Infini?
Yeah, sure. So my background is obviously, as you mentioned, in banking, in investment banking. My most previous role was I ran Asian commodities trading for JP Morgan, so across a range of different commodities, both physical and financial. Prior to that, I was in London for a number of years, running really vanilla and exotic trading businesses, also in the commodity space. And really before that, I started in Sydney. So back where I am right now, Sydney, trading also in the commodity business for Commonwealth Bank, and, across physical financial products. And, to kind of give you the full scope on that, I went through a 15 years in banking, building sort of risk portfolios, managing risk on behalf of clients, taking proprietary risk. And then, I spent a number of years, really the back end of 2017, 18, building out electronic market making, also for some of the banks, and around sort of distributing that B2B. Really, I guess when blockchain was starting to, come into, mainstream vogue. Obviously, there was all the hype of ICOs and some of the more scrupulous type activity. But there was obviously a use case for blockchain. There was a use case for digital commodities. And we'd already seen that evolution in the banking space, really in early 2000 around FX markets and rates markets in where electronic trading was going. And I guess what I could see was the writing on the wall that, within the banking system, within commodity markets, a lot of this new technology was going to offer the opportunity to disintermediate some of the financial service providers, take product directly from source to market. And that's really what we're doing with InfiniGold. We license technology to the commodities industry. It doesn't just obviously have to be gold, but it can be any form of commodity. And we enable them to really digitize their commodity and bring it directly to market, B2C, via an app we call Gold Pass, or B2B. And B2B obviously can be via things like tokenization, Perth Mint Gold Token, or can be directly into other forms of distribution which might not be tokenized formats of gold. It may just be some form of digital wallet which doesn't rely on the blockchain.
Okay. So it really is the next. Well, could we all say you're disrupting that part of the sector there? You found an opportunity to get a niche into there. So where did InfiniGold come from? What was the story about behind InfiniGold there?
Yeah, so InfiniGold is really a portfolio company of a research institute called the Capital Markets Cooperative Research Centre, the CMCRC. What the CMCRC does is it's effectively a government-funded, university-funded and industry-funded research centre focused on identifying market inefficiencies. So really looking for opportunities where market inefficiencies can be improved. And they take in, a range of PhD students, normally 60 to 70 PhD students, to do the research. And then they look at those, really the output from that research and try to identify opportunities that would give, some form of business opportunity or business case. And within the Institute, there's been really a number of success stories over the years. Probably the biggest one is a company called Smart that was eventually sold to NASDAQ. It's the leading market surveillance solution in the world still today. It's used by nearly all the stock exchanges and the investment banks and inter-dealer brokers around the world. And InfiniGold is another portfolio company of the CMCRC. It actually has the same technology team that used to build out the Smarts business, as well as another company called DigiCash, which is some of the technology that underpins InfiniGold. But all in all, it's we have a number of businesses that sit within this institute and working towards really trying to create what I would call digital finance 2.0. Right? It's really where we believe the world's going, frontier technologies, how they can be applied to real-world assets, and how we can give solutions to the market, which, obviously we're not trying to disintermediate everybody, but, things which are really trying to move value back to, either the producer or the consumer in the case of commodities, or strip out costs, unnecessary costs in using technology to strip those costs out.
Well, it seems like, there's some good success stories here. And it's encouraging to hear, some good news at the moment coming out. Some developments and some companies here. So, InfiniGold, it's obviously a digital form of gold, and you can use the Perth Mint gold token. You can buy these now on the Independent Reserve Exchange, and you can then use them with the Gold Pass to either store them there or to get convert it to a physical bar and get it shipped off to you. I've actually had one viewer that went through that process of getting an ounce of bar shipped to them from home, and they were quite happy with it, because you've got a lot of people now that are showing some interest in gold, and I'll just bring up the price for us now to have a look, because when we're talking with gold we have to look at the price. So right now we're sitting at about $1,900 here, and you can see just the drastic climb up of gold, and there's a lot of interest in investing in gold at the moment. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's a growing interest in it now than it was for the past? Or what's your take on that?
Yeah, sure. I'll just explain maybe for your listeners how that Gold Pass PMGT process works as well, before we get into the gold market. But what InfiniGold does is we license technology to the Perth Mint. The Perth Mint has a solution called Perth Mint Gold Pass, which you can download in the App Store, which allows you to buy, sell physical gold. It's effectively a digital representation of physical gold. You can obviously redeem it, as you mentioned. So you can redeem physical, they'll send it to you anywhere in the world, or you can trade it 24/7. So the Perth Mint streams a price on it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you can also send it peer-to-peer, so other holders of Gold Pass. What we can also do is convert within the app to a PMGT, which is a Perth Mint Gold token, and then it can come tradable on the public blockchain. And as you mentioned, we've recently listed that on Independent Reserve. So to answer your question, though, about gold, gold price action, and obviously, what's been happening in the last, really, I'd say 9 to 12 months, is that one, we're seeing significantly increased user demand, right, for gold, and that's because solutions like what we're offering are getting new market participants into the market. But more risk, I guess, importantly, why are they coming into the market? Well, if you look back at history, really since 1990 all the way through to today, what we've been doing with effectively monetary policy is we are taking leverage into the system, and then we're de-leveraging it every time we have some form of economic crisis. And whether that is, the early 90s when we had effectively a commercial real estate crisis, or the dot-com boom, or through to 2008 with the credit crisis, or the 2012 sovereign crisis, and now obviously the pandemic, every time leverage builds up into the system, and then we de-lever that system by really creating more M2 or money supply. That money supply obviously is devaluing fair currencies versus hard assets, And obviously, a lot of people are now viewing that as sort of really a vicious cycle and a scenario that is going to kind of continue, really indefinitely, particularly given the sorts of debt levels that, sovereigns but also corporates are at, and the fact that we have interest rates at zero. So we have a scenario now where interest rates are at zero, we have relatively high unemployment, we're potentially heading towards some form of stagflation environment where, central banks around the world are trying to encourage inflation at the same time where we have really sort of quite negative economic conditions. And from that, if you're looking at, ways to defend or protect your wealth, then gold is an obvious choice. And that's where we're seeing, I guess, a large percentage of institutional investors coming in and looking to buy gold. The second part of the story is around what you can do now with digital, right? And what technology is enabling you to do. So historically with gold, it wasn't really that useful as a form of monetary system, mainly because it's really not fractionable. So the fact that it's not fractionable, you can't really chisel off a little bit of gold and go and buy a loaf of bread with it, made it really as a store of value, not a currency. And obviously that's why we moved away from using gold historically. What new technology is enabling, and things like, Perth Mint, Gold Pass, as well as PMGT, is for gold to be used as a form of currency, i.e. it can be used to be spent at the local store. You can spend it on effectively a debit card. You can fractionalize it. So, it's as fractionalizable as currency. If anything, it's actually more fractionable. You can send 0.5%, 0.25%, whatever you need to send. And also, it's transferable. It's in your wallet, right? It's in your digital wallet. You're not trying to lug, 10 bars of gold with you in your back and take it across the border. You can now move around the world with gold as your base currency and spend that as wherever you want to, right? It's spendable on effectively a debit card, right? A MasterCard, a Visa card, because technology is enabling that. So I think we're seeing really two things. One is, the re-emergence of a macro environment that's encouraging institutional investors to come back into the space. And that's quite evident. I mean, there's a lot of, I'd say, pretty well-written articles around why that's happening, and that's driven by the debt. And then I think we're also seeing a whole new subset of new market participants, people that really never touched gold historically, who I'd argue are probably more in the retail space, who are now seeing gold, one, as part of their portfolio they should probably consider, in the fact that when you have interest rates at zero, you're not earning any money having your money in the bank. And if you're paying, zero storage fees, which, what Gold Pass offers, why would you hold your money in US dollars, Aussie dollars, versus holding it in gold if you believe that obviously currency is being devalued as they print more cash? And the second part is obviously that transactional ability, right? Technology enabling people to actually spend gold, meaning you're not constantly going between gold and Aussie dollars and back to gold. You're literally just holding that, and you can use that as your potential currency. So I think we're seeing a whole new wave of participants, and I don't think it's over. I think gold prices are going to be volatile because we're obviously have a very volatile macro market right now, particularly leading into the US election. We're going to see gold prices whip around, $100, potentially $200 an ounce. But I think we're realistically in a secular bull market now for gold, and we should be moving higher over the next 5 to 10 years, and probably dramatically higher than where we are today. So, it's probably the right time to be in the gold industry.
One thing that you mentioned is as an increase in the retail interest in gold, the consumer interest in gold, and I mean, I'm an example of that. Until a couple of years ago, wouldn't have even contemplated or considered it, and now, when you get into YouTube, you start to listen to all these gold bugs, and there's some people that like stack it up for, as an obsession. One thing that interests me is, I mean, because if you've got gold and then you've got a real currency, if you've got gold and then you've got Australian dollars, I'm gonna spend the Australian dollars and hold on to the gold as much as I can, which is what always happens. The currency that or the money that you see of less value, you get rid of first. Is there any opportunities you think to take it to the next level where, say, I'm issuing an invoice to a client, I can say, okay, here's your Australian dollar rate, and then here's how many grams of gold I'd also be willing to accept as an alternative. Is that something down in the road roadmap for your business, or is it still a bit of a dream now that I need to say, here's fill this out and send it to me?
I think there's a lot of people talking about that, replacement of fiat currency, and that probably leans more into the Bitcoin world than the gold world right now. But yeah, it's a possibility that you could move towards that. There's all sorts of implications from that, particularly around tax and how that would be reported, because obviously then, unless you start to be able to pay your tax in gold, and that would be moving back towards some form of gold standard or equivalent, it's probably unlikely that we would end up in that scenario. However, I do think it's possible, and you obviously saw, I think the company's called MicroStrategy in the US, who obviously have now moved a large part of their treasury management into Bitcoin. And so I think they did $425 million or $450 million of it. The way I would think about it as an individual, as a retail person, is the same way they're thinking about it from a treasury standpoint. So if you have your Aussie dollars and you're your own treasury, and that's managing your own balance sheet, do you want to be holding all your assets in Aussie dollars, or do you want to be holding? And you've got to think about yourself as being a global citizen, right? So not just an Australian citizen in the fact that you probably travel and you buy different assets and whatever else, and they're going to be influenced by the appreciation or depreciation of the Aussie dollar. So thus, to manage that sort of treasury portfolio, I think there is value having gold as part of that asset pool. I'm not saying you'd have it as 100% at all. I actually just think it's now becoming more clear or more the opportunity is probably a bit better today than what it was 6 to 12 months ago. Is having gold as a way to kind of de-risk your portfolio is the way I'd think about it.
So are you seeing a lot of uptake of the Perth Mint gold token, and are more people jumping on for their first encounter with gold, particularly maybe people coming from the crypto space? They may not have even considered it from gold, and this is a way for them to enter and at least get a taste of that market or that commodity.
Yeah, so the Gold Pass has seen exponential growth. So we've seen huge uptick in Gold Pass in Australia, and we've recently launched in the US. With the Perth Mint Gold token, it's the same sort of story. We obviously listed it recently on Independent Reserve. The transactional volumes have actually been quite surprisingly on the high side. I'd say the crypto community right now generally doesn't understand a lot of the real world assets as well as they understand the crypto asset side of it. And so, we see when we've listed on other exchanges in the past, the market participants on that exchange don't really understand that it's actually physical gold you're buying, and trying to get them to understand and realize that this is, every time there's a token issued, it is backed 1-for-1 with Gold Pass digital certificates, which is physical gold. So there's physical gold sitting behind it, and that's how the asset moves. It's going to track the physical gold market. So what's been, I think, quite encouraging is, listing on Independent Reserve is the market participants there seem to be, I'd say, much more sophisticated, obviously a little bit more institutional, and they understand that this is a great access point to get into physical gold, but hold it in a cryptographic way. So obviously hold it in a token format, one, and two, understanding that if they hold the token, they always have the ability to convert that back into physical, back into Gold Pass, and there was always 24/7 liquidity offered by the Perth Mint. So while you have liquidity on exchanges and on the blockchain, there's also another liquidity point, the fact that you can convert it back, and there's obviously a streaming price from the Perth Mint. So yeah, to answer your question, we have been very, very impressed by the amount of volume going through, and obviously we're anticipating that to continue to grow over the next 3 to 5 years as adoption of crypto assets grows and with mainstream investors.
One thing that you mentioned with regards to gold being a part of your portfolio to have diversity and protect you from potential stagflation or other currency issues is that you've got a digital gold or a digital token tied to gold, but then you also have physical gold, because you've got some people who say, oh, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. But one of the advantages of a physical bar of gold and having it in your hand is that to actually convert that into cash that you can use, you really have to get out. You've got to pick it up. You've got to go to the car. You've got to drive to your gold trader, or people try and sell it on Facebook. And in some regards, that's really good because it's for a long term time frame, you can just forget about it and not even worry. Whereas the Gold Pass or the Perth Mint Gold token gives you the advantage of it is you can liquidate it, as you said, when and where you need it. And particularly if we're going to see some significant increases in the gold, the price of gold and relative to the Australian dollar, I'd be looking at Gold Pass to liquidate a bit there if I needed some cash before I bother driving somewhere else. So that's how I see the two advantages of the two products. So even, I wouldn't go all in one version of gold. I'd spread it out a bit just out of convenience.
Yeah, that's spot on. So, a lot of gold bugs believe you need to have gold sitting under your bed for it to be real gold. So, which, in my opinion, it's not entirely correct. I mean, obviously, that's fantastic if you've got the gold. It's a great way to hold it. If it's physical and you're storing it on your bed, there's all other sorts of complications with coming with that. Obviously, security is one of them. Two is obviously spendability. So how do you actually, as you mentioned, monetize that gold? And if you actually need to have some form of liquidity event, you have all sorts of issues with trying to liquidate that physical metal. With Gold Pass, you own physical gold. You can elect to take physical delivery anytime you like in any form or format you want. So small bars, large bars, coins, whatever you want to get delivered to you. But you have that ability to liquidate it. So really what Gold Pass is it's not a derivative of gold. It's just a digital registry of ownership. Who owns the gold within Perth Mint? So once again, we just license the technology to the Perth Mint. It's their registry. It's their books and records, their ledgers saying that, Jon Deane owns this bar of gold. And if he wants to elect to take physical delivery, he'll take it physical or we'll buy back at him at this price. And so I think there is some significant advantages of holding it in a digital format versus holding it in physical. Not to say you shouldn't hold some in physical, i.e. like a physical bar yourself, but then you still need to have some form of trust of who's managing that physical in the event that you're holding it in a vault, who the insurance company is behind the vault, so i.e. what happens through theft, which creates other complications in my opinion. Versus obviously with Gold Pass, Perth Mint is owned by the West Australian government. They provide a government guarantee over all the physical metal. So you really have quite a lot of security around your gold holdings through Gold Pass and obviously PMGT, which is backed by Gold Pass as well. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, the fact that you can move it on chain, you can spend it on chain, you can take it off chain, you have liquidity off chain, or you can take physical. So it's kind of trying to give you a lot of that optionality that, obviously holding a physical product doesn't give you, at least, without having to jump through a few different hoops.
Well, do you remember what happened with Bullion Bros over in Perth there, where they, went into liquidation, and then the auditors had to go through, and their records apparently they had quite difficulty in people tying them up to what their physical holdings were. And I did a video talking about that, and people were coming in the comments, "What's going on? I've got 100 grand sitting in gold there," and it was quite disturbing actually seeing people that worried. So. I think even with some of the things that's coming out in the media, the Perth Mint does have a good brand, particularly globally. People trust them, so that can be an advantage having this technology licensed to the Perth Mint. Is there anything else that what's the next step? Are there any other? I know I'm not the only one that asked you for this. When are you going to have a silver token that we can buy? Is there any hope of that coming on the future?
Yeah,
or is it just not expensive enough?
I can't. No, definitely not. So, what we do obviously is I see ourselves as the on-off ramp for the physical commodity market. So we're working right now, obviously, on more products, which will be more than likely live before Q1 next year. I won't tell you exactly what they are, but there's a range of precious metals as well as other physical commodities that will be available both via our solution, so not obviously Gold Pass, but via another solution which is B2C, as well as tokenized commodities. So we're trying to be that technology provider to the commodities industry to move everyone really into a digital world, to give everyone access directly to these commodity providers, which historically have sold their products to financial intermediaries that have provided some form of structuring or legal title solution to get that product to market. So, as I said initially, we're planning on disintermediating that middle layer of financial service providers. So
it looks like there's exciting times ahead, and I mean, one one question I want to ask you: are the young people more interested in this approach to commodity exposure? Will I be able to buy, heads of cattle using a token system, and then, well, I personally, I'd love to get it delivered to my house, but that's probably just my obsession with good beef. There's other opportunities that are on the horizon, shall we say, and this could be the path and the point of difference for your organisation.
Yeah, I think with say cattle, I actually have a farm, so interesting enough, but which is actually a cattle farm. But I think the way you need to think about it is what we do with InfiniGold right now and Gold Pass is we're creating a solution for investment products. So products that people want to invest in, which are obviously are commoditized, so they're fungible, one, and two, they're non-perishable. So we're giving people really an access point to that market in relation to, effectively gold, silver, platinum, a range of other sort of physical commodities. The second part of it, really coming back to the cattle question, or any form of perishable good or physical asset, is really what our technology is, as I said before, it's a cryptographically secure registry solution that we give to our commodity clients. It's a smart contracting solution. Things can be transferred peer-to-peer. But where that is valuable, particularly in the commodity supply chain, is around financing. So once again, you can enable financing solutions, moving title between two different owners instantaneously without any form of clearing and settlement risk, one, and two, providing access points to other types of providers, really non-banks, to come in and help finance, provide solutions to the commodity industry to really help them grow. So that's where we see our business eventually moving towards. Obviously, as you get through, I guess, more the investment cycle, providing a bigger array of products which maybe don't target retail investors, but offer types of solutions that help the industry as well.
Well, that's so. Probably one question I put you to finish off is, from being in Sydney, you're definitely familiar with a lot of the construction issues that they have down there manifesting in a lot of the apartment buildings that have been put up all over the place, and a lot of it to do with the way that it's procured and just the checks that they're performed. And because I'm an architect and I've been following it for some time, and it's quite concerning. And one thing I've been putting forward is the suggestion of having like multiple certifiers, and I could almost see a way that you could use the ability of the blockchain to help track and log and manage this process. So if someone is out there recording something, that step or that check is there and it's publicly available, so you can see it. So then if you're coming to be an investor, you can see, okay, look, that's been done. That's been done. That's an opportunity I'd see in the construction sector. But maybe that's something I don't even want to look at myself. There you go. You can have that idea there. Solve the construction problem right there. There you go.
Well, I'm sure someone's looking at that, actually. There's a number of projects out there, obviously blockchain projects, either private or public, which are doing exactly that. Really call it life cycle type checks. And, I think they're great, right? I mean, what they're going to do is they're going to change the world. They're going to make things better, definitely. But it's trying to get adoption. So coming back to, what we're trying to do, but in general, people are still, I think, are a little bit burnt by 2017, 2018 ICOs. I think there was a huge amount of damage done to the industry on the back of that, and probably also the sorts of astronomical price action we saw as well for some of these crypto assets. It obviously got a lot of money into the sector, but at the same time, it created a big negative sentiment towards the space from traditional people, right? I mean, if you go out to the street, most people look at blockchain and still are a little bit concerned by it. So I think some of those solutions, they're going to come quite quickly, and people probably won't realize they are actually blockchain solutions when they adopt them, is probably more than likely. And it's the same way I view gold, right, with PMGT. People call it a token today. They think that, I'm trading a tokenized asset. But the world I envisage is, not what people are trading gold. They're not sort of saying I'm trading a gold token. They're just trading gold. They're just trading silver. They're just trading, iron ore, whatever it could be. What they don't realize what's going on behind the scenes is it's actually a token that's representing their ownership, and it's instantaneous, and it can be transferred between parties without any form of clearing and settlement risk, and it's eliminating all these sorts of, I guess, inherent risks in current marketplaces. So to me, that's the world we're moving towards, and it will be a success when we stop referring to tokens and stop referring to blockchain, and we just realize that we've kind of eliminated some risks that have existed in marketplaces since they were established.
That kind of makes me takes me back to computers in the 80s and 90s. When everyone had to type in DOS prompts and do all these commands just to get a computer to do anything. And now a grandmother can work on an iPhone and doesn't even know the complex processes they're using. So that's the future you envisage. Consumers who can barely work a electronic device using and making these complex transactions without even thinking twice.
Yeah, I think that DOS prompt is a perfect example. If you didn't know how to write a DOS prompt, then you probably couldn't work a computer. And that's where, hopefully, obviously, tokenization goes and real-world assets is that we eventually have all the platforms and systems to operate all these token solutions, but we won't be thinking about them as tokens. We'll just be thinking about them as assets.
I think you're right there. I think that's the eventual endpoint of all of this. People will be using this tech and not even realize it. I think that's what it needs to get to. Because it's so difficult to, particularly in crypto, just to move some stuff around can take a fair bit of skill that a lot of people don't quite have yet. Well, Jon, thank you very much for joining me today. Is there anything else you'd like to let people know or talk about before we say goodbye?
No, if you want to have a look at the token, though, they can go to our website, pmgt.io.
Oh, hang on, wait a minute. Where is it?
The PMGT.io.
PMGT.io, yep.
Which will give you all the background on the Perth Mint Gold token. If they want to learn a little bit more about InfiniGold and obviously digitization of real-world assets, that's just infinigold.com.
Yep.
And we can talk to you about obviously helping you go on-off ramps or for physical commodities into a digital world.
So if other people have commodities or that their interest has been heightened by this, they should get in touch with you, and you're happy to talk to them and see what opportunities could amount.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so new commodity clients, new Perth mints. Obviously, we're happy to help, on B2B integrations and help people grow the ecosystem. So, we're always happy to talk and help, see what we can do from the InfiniGold side, and likewise, if we can help them grow their business, then we'll do what we can.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Jon, for your time today. I really appreciate it. And keep in touch. It's good to see where it's all going.
But enjoy Brisbane. See you later.
Take care. Bye.